What's going on, everyone? It is Kaio here. Recently I've had a few different people, especially from my locals and a lot of my friends, reach out to me asking me for my Sakazuki deck list. I've been changing around quite a few cards the last few weeks, and I think I've finally stumbled on to the one deck list that I am quite confident with. So I thought I'd make a video just explaining some of the thought process behind why I'm using some of the cards and what I actually have in the deck list. So obviously, first up, we have the Sakazuki leader. Activate main once per turn. You may trash one card from your hand and you can draw one card. This is incredibly strong for mulling cards into your deck, especially like the 3-cost Hina, as well as getting things like brand new to cycle through. Once you're past your 2-don turn, there's not really many use cases for playing him, unless you're searching for things like a Houndblaze or something late game, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. When attacking, you can give up to -1 cost from anything on your opponent's side of the field, which again is incredibly strong. But the first pick that I have going into the Sakazuki deck is I run 2 of the 1-cost Manchuri. The reason why I run 2 is it's a 1k counter. It does involve putting cards at the bottom of your deck, which can kind of be a little bit rough early game. I mostly use her to bring back things like Sabo when I'm versing yellow, because Sabo making everything immune on your side of the field from KO makes it incredibly strong in the yellow matchup to avoid things like Thunderbolts. So that's why I'm only running 2. It's not too often that I will see me playing them. It's kind of just like a last minute grabbing things back. But going into our first set of 2k counters, we run the 4 Suru. Suru, again, another incredibly strong card with the fact that it is a 2k counter, as well as on play, give up to one of your opponent's characters -2 cost for this turn. Very, very strong if you get the chance to kind of use it in conjunction with Lucci, Borsellino, Houndblaze, anything like that. It can be very strong in that kind of field. Also running the 4 Brennus. Brennus being the searchers. Typically, you just want to play them at the start of the round. Get them out turn 2. If you can't get it out turn 2, it kind of is just a bit of counter fodder. Again, it can be useful late game, but I haven't really found too many use cases where I find myself using it after the 4-don turn. But if you can get it down on your 2-don turn, it is incredibly strong in the Houndblaze combo of swinging 7k with lead and then attaching 2 to Brenu to Houndblaze to swing for another 6k. It's a very, very strong poke. Next 2k counter is the 4 3-cost Ashigis. I think this card's a little bit self-explanatory. It's the exact same as Suru. It is a 2k counter that can actually be searched by Rebecca and brought back from the trash, which is very, very, very good. There's been a lot of times where I've been playing and I've had a Hina in hand, but I've had no counters. So I've played the Rebecca and I've actually bought back the Tashigi for a 2k counter and played the Hina out of hand. And yeah, it's done me wonders a lot of times. But speaking of the Hina, we're running 4 of the 3-cost Hina. This card, on play, give up to one of your opponent's characters -4 cost during this turn. This is, I would say, probably the first absolute staple of this deck. It's one that you really, really want to make sure you recycle into your trash early game. Getting it out early game is incredibly important for the Rebecca combo. I've played times where I've used Rebecca to bring back Hina from the trash just purely for board presence and pressure. Obviously, it's on play -4 is incredibly strong with Lucci or Houndblaze or any other form of removal, as well as one of the other cards I'll get into later, the 7-cost Borsellino. On your 10-cost don turn, she's very, very strong to just play her to the board for 3 don rather than trying to mull her into your grave and then replay her with Rebecca. Playing her with the 7-cost Borsellino is a very, very strong thing to do. Next, this one's a little bit controversial. I know a lot of people don't like playing this. I personally do like playing this. In the Australian meta, yellow is still very, very prevalent. So I like to run the 2 3-cost blue ultis. I have tried playing the blue Hinas. I'm honestly not a fan of Hina. I think ulti is much better. The bottom deck potential as well as pressuring onto a leader, I find is way more game-changing than just 1 extra draw power. Her paired with a few more cards, which I'll get into later on, is one of the reasons why I prefer her over the ulti. And speaking of cards that she's paired with, one of the cards I actually do pair her with is the 4-cost Kuzan. I run 3 of the 4-cost Kuzan. I did try to play with just 2 of them for a little while. I didn't like not having as much pressure by not having the 3rd, so I did bring it back. Again, very, very powerful card. On play is draw 1, and then when attacking, give up to your opponent's -4 cost. So that is probably the biggest thing about this card. Not only does it have good power to kind of cycle through your deck, it also allows you to give up to -4 cost, which kind of makes it a pseudo blocker. Like, people want to get rid of that card. They don't want it sticking on the field. And I've had a lot of Katakuris and NLs using Thunderbolt just to get rid of her. So they're giving up a life. I actually had a Katakuri player the other day misplay purely because of Kuzan. He Thunderbolted on his last life just to try and get rid of him, not realizing that he could only use the NL leader ability on opponent's turn. So yeah, it's a very strong card. People don't want it. People want it off the board. If you can get it to stick, I would say it's probably one of the best cards in the deck. Following the theme of the Admirals, though, we run 4 of the 4-cost Borsalinos. Again, yellow being such a strong meta, it's immune to KO. It's a 6k body, prevents a lot of swings. It's a 1k counter if need be. Even in the mirror matchup, it's not as great because it can be bottom decked, but it is still a very strong card if they don't have the opportunity to bottom deck with, say, Houndblaze or 7-cost Borsalino. Going into the next one, was talking about it a little bit earlier. I'm running 4 of the 4-cost Rebeccas. Rebecca is probably another one of the staples of the deck. She's a blocker, and on play, add up to 1 black character with a cost of 3 to 7 from your trash, other than Rebecca, back to your hand. And then you can play 1 3-cost from, I believe it's, yeah, sorry, 1 3-cost character from your hand to your field rested. So Rebecca paired with the Hina is incredibly strong. You get a blocker on the field, and due to her ability, you can play Hina to minus up to 4 cost to someone's character. It's an incredibly strong combo to play together. And once you get to the later turns, when you're, say, at 8 Dawn, paired with the next card, which is the Rob Lucci, it is incredibly strong. You can do certain things like playing Rebecca to bring back Hina from the trash, play her on the board, minus 4 cost to a card, and then you can play the Rob Lucci to KO up to a 6-cost card, as well as a 1 cost. So if you swing with your leader, that's up to a 7-cost character KO'd with the 1 card. You're establishing 3 cards on the board, including 1 blocker. It's a very strong combo. But pairing that into yellow later on, I would say the most important card so far for me would definitely have to be the 5-cost Sabos. Playing the card on the field, making everything on your side of the field immune to KO is so important into yellow, especially when you've got things like Rebecca and Borsalino who can be KO'd on your opponent's turn. So if they trigger a Thunderbolt, that's one of your blockers immediately gone. Sabo being there kind of reassures you that you can swing without being worried about anything happening. All of your cards are safe from being KO'd. The worst case scenario, they trigger a blocker, which you can then just remove anyway. So I would say it is the most important card in the deck list. Following into it is the 7-cost Borsalinos. I only run 2. I was contemplating running 3, but some of the next cards that I'm playing I have found to be a lot better for me personally. The Borsalino, again, on play, place up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to the bottom of the owner's deck. Pair that with the 3-cost Hina on your 10-Don turn, and you're able to actually bottom deck a 8-cost character. It's incredibly strong. It's probably one of my favorite things late game, because again, you're getting an 8k body on the field, you're getting a 5k body, and you're getting rid of their pressure. It's good for Katakuri, it's good for the 7-cost Big Mom. There's a lot of characters that it's really, really strong against. But the reason why I'm only running 2 of them as opposed to 3 or 4 is because the next card I'm running is actually the 10-cost Kuzan. Another card I'm playing pretty much just for the yellow matchups. I would say this deck is built primarily for the yellow matchup. 10-cost Kuzan, on play, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. With a cost of 0. But on your turn, give all your opponent's characters -5 cost. So his on play is basically KO up to a character of a cost of 5 or less. Again, very strong, good to get rid of blockers, good to get rid of things like Gadatsu, Ohm. If you're at 10 Don turn, it gets rid of things like Magellan. Yes, I know you have to -2, but you've already played 10 to play the Kuzan. Next turn, you get the 2 back anyway. So it's worth getting rid of pressure on those sorts of things. But I'm only running 1 of those because the other card that I'm actually playing is the 10-cost Kaido. Kaido and Kuzan together, I would say, have won me more games than I can count. Kaido being a 12k body who can rival the 10-cost Big Mom. He, on play, if your opponent has 3 or less life, you get to draw 4 cards. Very, very strong for recycling your deck, going through, pulling out more counters, pulling out more removal, more cost reduction. It kind of just allows you to get a big body on the field and potentially get enough cards to stall out the next turn. So I would say it is probably my second favorite card in this deck. I wasn't running it at first. I was running only the 1 Kuzan and 2 Ice Age, but after swapping to the Kaido, I've actually dropped my Ice Age down to only the 1 card. Ice Age, I would say, is a lot less important than your Great Eruptions, which we'll get into next. Main, give up to one of your opponent's characters -5 cost during this turn. It's good, but once you get to your 10 Don turn and you play the 10-drop Kuzan, they're -5 every turn anyway. I would say that Kuzan I don't swing with pretty much ever until I know that I'm going for lethal. Just to keep him on the board, there's no threat of anybody being able to remove him unless it's a mirror match. It's a very, very strong card. And again, Kuzan, where I find him more important than the Ice Age, is going into late game against a Katakuri. I actually had this play happen the other day, where I had a 4-cost Kuzan on the board, and I had a 4-cost Borsalino on the board, and that was all. My opponent played a 10-drop Big Mom, so I swung them for 5k at lead with Kuzan, minusing 4 to the Big Mom. Swung them 5k with Leader, minusing 1 to the Big Mom, leaving her as a 5-cost character, and then played the 10-drop Kuzan and got to bottom deck her immediately. KO her immediately, as well as replacing their big body with my big body. Ice Age is a good card, but there's not many use cases for it later into the game, I found. But the card that I do think is a lot better is the Great Eruptions. I'm running 4 Great Eruption. Main is draw 1 card, then give one of your opponent's characters -2 cost during this turn. One thing that I found out playing this card, or I was actually told by a friend of mine, the importance of reading the cards and the list first, or the way that the cards set out first, because the first step is draw 1 card. There's been many times where I've played this card and say they have a 3 cost on the board and a 4 cost on the board, or a 5 cost, sorry, and I've gotten things like a Hound Blaze from drawing. I've found it very, very strong to play the Great Eruption, draw your card, and then once you've drawn your card, you can use that as information to help you decide which character card on their side of the field you want to give that -2 cost to, because depending on the card that you draw can completely change the outcome of what you want to do. But the last card that I'm running is the 4 copies of Houndblaze. Houndblaze being probably one of the strongest cards this set in terms of events. Main, up to one of your leaders or character cards gains plus 3,000 this turn, then place one of your characters, your opponent's characters, with a cost of 2 or less at the bottom of its owner's deck. It doesn't say opponents, it does just say characters. I'm just going to say opponents because you never want to bottom deck your own cards. This is very, very strong paired in against NL. There's been times where I have had a NL on 1 or 2 life, and they had the 7 cost rush NL on the field. Playing into the kind of strategy of this deck, I would play a Rebecca, use Rebecca to bring back Hina to -4 cost to their NL, making him a 3 cost. I would swing 5k with my leader at their leader, reducing him by another 1, making him a 2 cost. Then I would play Rob Lucci to KO it. A lot of the times they will actually trash their own life to keep their NL, which is then where you can play the Houndblaze after to bottom deck it, because they've already used the character's effect. You're getting rid of that card. Again, you're establishing 3 cards on the board. If you have an additional card on the board, you've then given it an extra 3,000 power to allow you to swing at their leader even harder. It's very, very strong. It's something that I like to use early game. I'll use it early game to cycle things out like Perispero, because I don't want to KO Perispero. I want to bottom deck him. In the mirror matchup, it's good against the 4-drop Borsalino because it's not KOing, it's actually bottom decking. I would say using it early game and then using things like Rob Lucci or Manshuri when you're returning things to the bottom of your deck to then return the Houndblazes. Because if it's a long game, which versus NL it usually is, it allows you to kind of cycle back through your deck, and if you get to the point where you get those cards again, there's no downside, it's only beneficial. But this is the deck list that I'm currently running for OP05. I have not won a locals yet. The closest I've come is 2nd. I'm pretty 50-50 against NL so far. Katakuri I'm definitely getting a lot more confident with, especially with the introduction of the 10 cost Kuzan and 10 cost Kaido. But yeah, this is the current deck list I'm running. If you have any questions about how I face specific matchups, please let me know. If you have any recommendations on things that you're currently running in your deck that you would advise me try out, I'm all ears. I'm happy to try anything out. But yeah, that's the deck list, and thank you guys for watching. Have a good one. Peace.